Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It is now 5:30, and I will call this regular meeting of the Burnsville City Council to order. It is our tradition to stand for a moment of silence, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance, and we invite you to join us. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Our meetings are held in person and also virtual. And tonight's meeting, you can attend like you all are in person, and also on burnsvillemn.gov/meeting, and you can do that virtually. And you can also view our meetings on Comcast, channel 16 or 856. And the public can also participate through Zoom by joining us at zoom.us/join. And also by calling 651-372-8299 if you wish to comment on any of the items that we're discussing. And more information is available on our meeting webpage and in the council agenda packet. The next item on the agenda is announcements. Our announcements have to do with all of our upcoming meetings, and we also have a proclamation. So upcoming meetings. Regular council meetings are scheduled for Tuesday, September 21st at 5:30 p.m. and Tuesday, October 5th at 5:30 p.m. We have a work session that's scheduled for Tuesday, September 14th at 5:30 p.m. Now all of these meetings are held here in the council chambers. We have some special work sessions, and so we have a special work session that's about our interviews for commissions, and that's Monday, September 13th at 5:30. That will be in one of our conference rooms. And then we have an inclusion and belonging session 5. That's Monday, September 20th at 5:30, and that's going to be downstairs. And then we have a special meeting with ISD Board of Commissions. That's a joint session between the City Council and the School Board. That's on Monday, September 27th at 5:30. That meeting is going to be at the Ames Center. And then, I don't know, do we have someone from Women of Today? There you guys are. So I'm going to read that proclamation over there, and if you could all come up. So, ladies and gentlemen, tonight's proclamation is for Women of Today Week. Whereas the Minnesota Women of Today and United States Women of Today have set aside the week of September 19th through the 25th, 2021, to celebrate the many community activities and dedicated membership. And whereas the Burnsville Women of Today are dedicated to promoting community service such as Adopt a Street, 360 Communities, high school scholarships, and March of Dimes, among others. And whereas the Burnsville Women of Today have been a vital part of this community for over 29 years, and I remember when you all helped us with the garage. Yeah. Whereas the Burnsville Women of Today have provided personal enrichment and leadership development to the members of this community through service. And whereas the Minnesota Women of Today and the United States Women of Today are united by our friendship and belief in the future. Now therefore be it resolved that I, Elizabeth Kautz, Mayor of the City of Burnsville, on behalf of the City Council, do hereby proclaim the week of September 19th through the 25th, 2021 as Women of Today Week in the City of Burnsville, in recognition of their service and volunteerism nationwide and in our community, proclaimed this 7th day of September 2021. You all have been such wonderful partners. And Mary, it's been so wonderful to to work with all of you, and now, I mean, because we had some fundraisers and some really fun things that we did out at Crystal Lake Park, and so I don't know if you're going to start that up next year, or
You never know.
yeah. So, but thank you so much for everything.
Thank you for always supporting us.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Well, thank you for supporting the community and being right there all the time to support our youth, and all the things that we did at the garage, in the very beginning, and then with the scholarships that you all do. So thank you so much. You guys
Thank you
do
so
great
much.
work.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you. Take care.
You got one.
The next item on the agenda is citizens' comments. This is the opportunity for anyone in the audience to address the council on an item that is not on the printed agenda, not an application form that will be coming before us at a future date. Is there anyone who wishes to address the council? Ms. Collins, is there anyone in queue?
Just recently had some.
No? Okay, we will move on. And the next item is additions to the final agenda, and this is for emergency items only. City Manager Lee, are there any emergency items to come before the council?
There are not, Madam Mayor.
Members of the council, any emergency items? Okay, thank you. We will move on. The next item is the consent agenda. The consent agenda is a group of items that's considered to be routine and will be enacted by one motion. However, an item on a consent agenda can be removed for a separate discussion and vote. Is there anyone in the audience who wishes an item on the consent agenda to be removed for a separate discussion and vote?
Yes, thank you, everybody. My name is Nate Brandenburg. I'm attorney with Moss and Barnett. I'm here on behalf of Nicollet Business Campus for the adjoining property owner of item 4K on the consent agenda, and we'd ask to discuss that matter as part of the regular agenda.
Okay, we'll pull that item for a separate discussion and vote. City Manager Lee, anything from staff?
No, Madam Mayor.
Members of the council, Councilmember Gustafson.
Ms. Madam Mayor, I'd like to remove 4E for discussion.
Okay, 4E. So 4E and 4K is pulled for a separate discussion and vote. May I have a motion for the balance, please?
Move to approve.
Councilmember Gustafson, Keeley makes the motion.
Second.
Second by Councilmember Workman. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay, and the motion carries. Councilmember Gustafson, 4E. This is the resolution declaring the cost to be assessed, approving preparations of the proposed assessment rolls, and calling for the public hearing for 2021 Streetscape and Miscellaneous Special Assessment.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd just like us to revisit this before we move forward on this. When we got the numbers this week, I was kind of astounded that the general fund share of this went up over $200,000 now because of this change that we made to give relief to some of the property owners in the heart of the city. And it's starting to get to the point where the city itself is paying, or our citizens are paying more, about 75% everything that goes on down in that area. The other thing, I'm not sure that we fully had vetted all of this yet. We had all agreed to talk about expanding the footprint down there, which would in effect should lower the assessments for all the properties in the area by adding more properties, like expanding our tax base in those particular areas. Today, just kind of looking through the whole map and realizing, and I got figured it out, that 201 building, which is one of the subjects of why this was brought up, that Mr. Keeley had brought to us, is paying a lot of money in assessments. And I realized that the way that their property is platted is it's in front of their building, but then that plat goes all the way across Las Grandes. And so they're paying almost 600 feet in assessments, where Las Grandes, which is a very large property, is paying 159 feet. And I think we need to look at ways to address that situation. And I'm just wondering if there's other situations in that area that we may have to look at. My goal is I want to help alleviate some of the assessments down there for our property owners, but I want us to do it in a very proper way, where we vet the whole thing, so we make good policy, that we're not re-looking at this in a year or two again. And so that's why I'd like this council to maybe have a little more discussion about going to this 25% or holding off until our city staff can bring back the report that we all agreed we wanted to have anyways, of how that would affect if we expanded the base down there anyways.
Well, if I remember correctly, and our city clerk can correct me if I'm wrong, we did the 25% cap just for 2022, while our staff then can do the work as we look at expanding the footprint, and then have better information for us to make a good decision rather than a capricious decision on all of this. So I agree with you on all of this, and that's very interesting to understand that Mr. Valentine's, the property that he's managing, did not take a look at that the footprint of that plat, and that it's paying Los Grandes, so.
It's kind of like a flagpole.
And so the thing is, how do we make those corrections? But we can only do that if we do a deeper dive and vetting and allow staff to do that and to come back with what is appropriate. So we need good information to make good decisions. Councilmember Keeley.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. At the all-day work session discussion, we decided this was really going to have to come in two phases. Phase one is the 25% cap that I recommended because we needed a stopgap to stop what was a highly imbalanced assessment policy that had been going on for nearly 20 years or so. And then the second phase, as you alluded to, Madam Mayor, was the continuation of that project to take a look at a different way that we assess and to include a larger area within the heart of the city. To not go forward with this 25% cap would have basically, after over a year and a half, nearly 2 years of talking about it with these property owners, we would then kick the can down yet another year and the same imbalance would take place. This at least mitigates that for those people who are paying very, very large amounts compared to many of the properties who are paying very small amounts. And it's certainly not perfect, but it's a giant step in the right direction. After this has been talked about for quite some time. I also want to point out in one of my first discussions with City Manager Lee, she actually pulled up the map and noted that staff had talked about that one property that has the very unusual shape where it, apparently when it was platted, they wanted a lot of street frontage, but very narrow strip running a long way in front of another property. It was a very unusual shape. And they had noted that they were going to maybe take some steps to mitigate that one property, but that's only one. That's not the bulk of them that are in this circumstance that have complained. So I would suggest we continue forward as we had determined at our all-day work session and our follow-up in July and move forward with the 25% cap as presented.
Yeah. Just for this year, until we get more information, better information, with a larger footprint, and the corrections to some of those properties that have been platted with a huge frontage. But we won't know that until our staff can do that work. And,
I don't know that we, Madam Mayor, just to correct, I don't think we specified this as a one-year thing, but clearly this was a one-year thing, step in the right direction to give us time to actually do the comprehensive study. And if we can't get that done in the next year, then it's going to be a 2-year thing.
well, because the one thing that is of concern is that it's about 0.75% of a levy that we have to pay on the rest of this. So let's make sure that we're making good decisions with good information.
Are you stating, Madam Mayor, just for
for-
clarification, are you stating that the 37,000 equates to 2/3% of a levy?
No, because of the 37, what happens is that the rest of the city, 201,717 is being paid by the general public.
Yes, but that only represents a $37,000 increase on the general population, not 2/3 or 3/4% of a levy percent. $37,000 equates to about
0.1%.
a 0.1%
Yeah,
is the
no.
additional burden as a result
No,
of this 25%
I
cap
understand.
on the general population. I just want to make sure it's stated in the right context with the right facts.
Yeah. Well, it's in our background. The remaining cost of $201,717 will be the city's cost, and that includes the 50% non-assessed portion. Assessments calculated on the city's owned properties. So,
I don't disagree. A lot of people, the entire city, many people enjoy the benefits of the heart of the city. The ones that live there and own property there
Yeah.
enjoy it more directly. And so the 50-50 split concept made sense. It's just we've got a problem with runaway special assessment costs. And so I think the real telltale is the study that will come from staff.
Yeah.
Where we can look at expanding it, which Councilmember Gussow noted, which we talked about and we all
Yeah.
support. And then maybe taking a closer look at what we are doing there, even though I think generally we all felt what was being done was important and had value. But we're just gonna take a maybe more comprehensive look at it and make sure that we're all gonna make that same statement after
Yeah.
we get the results.
yeah. It's always good for us to have good information to make good decisions and not arbitrary and capricious decisions made without full understanding of what's going on. So I understand then, so Councilmember Gustafson, Councilmember Keeley is saying adopt the action, the resolution that's before us for these assessments. Councilmember
I
Gustafson?
have a question for City Manager. When could we expect some sort of report on what we've talked, because we have talked about this for a while, as far as looking at expanding the whole area, the footprint down there to go in line with our TOD in that area. And I just want an idea of when we can expect to hear back on all that.
Mayor and council members, we have an update for the council at your October work session on the HOC framework. And then as part of that, I'll look to Ryan and Jen on the timing I think the analysis comes after that then.
We're hoping that we are able to have the whole thing completed by April, May next year.
April, May next year. So if we did this for 1 year, we could visit again in April, May, and then come in with a final policy decision based on all the facts. I'd be willing to do a 1 year, 25% to help out for the immediate that you want to help out with, but we need to revisit this and put in a policy that's going to be long-term, that actually works for the entire heart of the city.
I think that's the intent of.
Yeah,
what
I
we
think
talked
that's
about
what
at
we're
the holiday
talking
and in
about
July.
right now.
So
So
you're
if,
good with the 1 year for our review in April, May, then?
I'm good with it as stated in our background. I don't think we need to modify it at all.
okay, so if
Is it for
if
1
it's
year in the
clear-
background? I'm sorry, I missed that if it isn't.
I don't believe it's
You want
specified.
to make it
as a-
permanent now without the report?
Yeah. I'm going to.
Until we have the report, yeah. I want it to stay in place until we have the full comprehensive
We
report.
just found out we're going to have the report in the spring.
Good, when we have the report, that'll trigger the change. I don't think we need to
Well,
do
then
anything
let's
right
put
now.
it in here so it does trigger.
Are you
Mr.
asking for a
Peterson?
mandate for the
No,
study?
I want to do an amendment it's for this year until we get the report, and then we revisit it. I don't want to put this in place permanently.
Yeah. Mr. Peterson?
There's no proposed changes to any policy. This has to come before, this is an annual process. So
Yeah.
we have to follow the same process next year, no matter what we bring back to you. So this isn't going through without city council approvals moving forward into future years. And there's no
I
change
think
to a policy.
we're
because-
talking about the 25% cap.
Right. So you have a chance to review all of this as it goes forward
wanna
next
get it
year as
right.
well. So we're not making a change to a policy where all of a sudden it's gonna be 25%. The policy still is the same as it ever was.
Okay, we're just making this change for this budget year, for these assessments, with the 25% cap. The policy never changed.
The policy never changed.
Okay,
By default, it's a 1 year then, right?
yeah, yeah.
I can live with that.
So
get the report.
what we have is, what I'm trying to do here, City Manager Lee, is to make sure that we give good, clear direction. So staff isn't, one time you hear one thing from us and the next time you hear another, because that creates a lot of confusion. What are we doing? So at least we're all talking about the same thing. Staff is going to bring back the full report, and then we can make a decision about how we make the assessments for the heart of the city.
Our goal is to have the whole framework plan, including this aspect, done in April, May time period.
Okay, and that gives you enough time with the staffing that you have with everything else that's on your plate?
We will work our darndest to get it done at that time. We understand, we want this completed as well.
Okay.
It's in all of our best interest to have this done at that time.
Okay, and I do want to thank staff for all of this, because, you know, you're doing some yeoman work when we continue to change our minds on you. So thank you for all of that.
Madam
So,
Mayor,
yes,
just
Councilmember Keeley.
Just a follow-up, I appreciate the comments by Councilmember Gustafson. We clarified it's by default 1 year. I just want to specify or clarify that when we take it up by next April, we're still in advance of the 2023
Yes, budget time.
tax and decisions and notifications, et cetera. So we're on a time schedule, we're well in advance of any sort of deadline to get a policy changed, whatever it's going to look like, to then impact the following year's tax statements, correct?
Assessments.
Assessments.
Our goal would be to have the policy updated to whatever it's going to be in time to complete this process next year.
Right, before those assessment notices have to be going on.
Correct.
Right.
Yeah.
That's
Okay.
the goal.
Okay, so Councilmember Keeley, you made the motion to adopt the resolution. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilmember Schultz. Further discussion? With all of the understanding, and staff has it, and the nice thing about what we do is that everything is on tape, and if the minutes doesn't reflect it, we can always go back and take a look at the tape and see all of that. All right, there's a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, say nay. And the motion carries. Okay, the next item is item K, and this is the application of the Minnesota Cemetery Corporation for a conditional use permit amendment for an expansion to increase the number of cemetery plots within the western part of Pleasant View Memorial Garden Cemetery located at 400 Highway 13 East. Mr. Brandenburg?
Sure.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. As noted, my name is Nate Brandenburg. I'm an attorney with Moss & Barnett. I'm here on behalf of Nicollet Business Campus LLC. Nicollet Business Campus is the adjoining property owner to the subject property. Owns the properties at 12201 Wood Lake and 12201 Nicollet. The Wood Lake property is the property that's most directly impacted by the proposed CUP amendment. My client acquired these properties in August of 2008, and since then there have been two main issues, that they've dealt with as a neighbor over there. One's been a parking situation, which I think the city is aware of, and the other is a stormwater drainage issue. From a parking standpoint, what's occurred at the Nicollet properties are that when services are held at the cemeteries, it's been common for persons wanting to participate in those services to attempt to park at the Nicollet properties and then access the cemetery. That caused my client to erect a fence, I believe, in 2019, following their acquisition in 2018, which has abated some of the access issues. But some of the issues continue to persist, where people will park on the Nicollet properties to view services. We've had issues with people climbing the fences and damaging the fences. So as part of the evaluation of the CP amendment, my client would like the city to consider imposing some type of, or starting some type of discussion with Minnesota Cemeteries as to whether there's a plan moving forward to address their parking issues on site, especially with the idea that the CUP has been being amended to increase capacity. We included a couple of photographs with our written submission that showed cars parked down the length of Highway 13 when services are present. And if you can imagine cars parked down 13, then cars are also parking down Nicollet and down Wood Lake as well to try to access those issues. The more emergent issue is stormwater, and obviously that issue hasn't been to the forefront this year with a dry year, but we also include some photographs and some video with our submission. There's a significant water runoff issue that's impacting the southeast corner of the Wood Lake property, where drainage from the Minnesota Cemetery's property is being directed onto the Nicollet property. One of the series of photographs were from a recent rainstorm within the last 2 weeks. Now, this is a dry year, but in the parking lot, we had water over the curb, and I don't know if you're familiar with that property or not, but it's a slab-on-grade commercial property. When water gets up above the curb, you're within probably 6 inches of coming in the front door of the 10 businesses of that property. In reviewing the plans that have been submitted, it's our interpretation that, obviously there's some significant clear cutting that's going to take place for the expansion, but that there are really no changes as to how stormwater is directed. And if you look at one of the plans that was submitted, I believe there's a 1, 2, and 3 showing how water is directed on site. The direction 1, which is water flowing directly to the west, flows into what's been delineated as a wetland that adjoins that property, and that's what from there, when water is directed into that wetland, that's where you're seeing the water flow on to the Nicollet property. And my client's concerned that with losing a significant amount of vegetation over there, and what appears to be some additional grading, that unless there's some plan put in place to mitigate those issues, that the issues are only going to be exacerbated over there. And my clients had discussions with Minnesota Cemeteries on the issue over the last couple of years, and my clients generally tried to be a good neighbor, and you can imagine when water flows onto their parking lot, obviously it's an issue for the tenants, it's an issue for their guests, but it's not like the water just drains and goes down the storm sewer. There's a lot of mud that comes in with that, and that's an expense my client has continued to incur to address the issue. And we just feel with the planned expansion, the plan that was put forth to the city for the expansion doesn't address the stormwater concern at all. And if the problem's exacerbated, my client stands to could have a very significant flooding issue over there beyond just the general nuisance issues that impact access to the lot, access to the tenant spaces and whatnot. So as the plan stands, my client would objects to it and recommends that it be sent back for further evaluation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
City Attorney Jamnik, as we look at this, it's a conditional use permit, and usually when we do get conditional use permit or a PUD or any of this, is an opportunity to look at correcting some of these issues. For instance, I don't know what to do about the parking issue, but the drainage issue, as I look at these photographs that have been sent to us, is there a way that we can get this done?
Mayor and
Help?
Council, the Planning Commission didn't directly address this issue, or the comments made from the resident or the business owner next door, because they were not made at the Planning Commission. The staff report addressed some of the parking issues as being continued to be accommodated primarily by the aisle drives within the cemetery, and the engineer for the applicant, as well as the Water Management Commission, has evaluated that, and there'll be a grading and erosion control permit reviewed, but that wouldn't address the pre-existing drainage pattern. It was primarily addressing the tree removal and grading as part of the expansion. So if the council's inclined to have a staff review of the issues raised tonight, sending it back to the Planning Commission is a possibility. We are up against the deadline of October 21st. We've already done an extension under the 60-day rule, so it would have to come back to City Council action by that October 21st deadline. I don't know if it's possible to get it in the Planning Commission agenda for next week, but there's the possibility for that. So if you wanted those items reviewed and staff input on that, we do have time available to take advantage of that schedule.
Yeah, because I'm looking at these photographs. Now, I don't know what to do with the parking, because, and there's a fencing, so it appears to me that, are they jumping the fence? I don't know that, that's anecdotal information. But the drainage system is something that we can see very clearly, that it is having a negative impact on those properties. So how do we correct that?
The only way is to get more information and then a staff analysis, a review of what could possibly be done to mitigate the impacts or address those issues. We can't really do it tonight
No.
from the dais. We just
No.
don't have the information available. But you could send it back for further review.
Okay, members of the council, your thoughts. Councilmember Keeley and then Councilmember Gustafson.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I would agree wholeheartedly that we need to send this back. The photos are pretty
Explicit.
clear and explicit that this property is not mitigating runoff, and it is becoming a problem for the neighbor, as their representative noted, and I feel for that property that has basically this massive flood wash coming into there, along with mud and debris into their lot, because it is not adequately being dealt with by the property owner. And so I think the property owner needs to make sure that that is mitigated before we go forward with the
Yeah,
CUP.
and that's why when they come before us for a conditional use permit, we have that opportunity to address these problems. Councilmember Gustafson.
I totally agree. It's, looking at the pictures and having managed some commercial properties that did flood out from time to time because other properties flood into it, it can be very problematic. And so if there's a way to cure this, I know it's going to put some pressure on our planning commission and our staff to get this done, but
Yeah.
if we can get that done and get back to us and still make our 60-day rule, I think that would be the appropriate thing to do.
Okay, Councilmember Schultz.
I have a question for the attorney.
Mr. Brandenburg.
My question is, why was this not brought up during the planning commission meeting?
The notice we received noted hearing at the planning commission, but then also the ability to provide a written submission by, I believe, the 27th of August, which we did.
Okay, the reason I ask is we do like these things addressed. We do like them addressed in a timely manner. And when we have an applicant that has gone through the process and then planning commission is approving it, of course, we can redirect to take different action. But having this addressed in the proper order would have been when it was before planning commission. And I do realize you could submit your written statement, but now what it's doing is it's delaying action on something, and it's an unnecessary delay. I will say that, yes, this does need to be mitigated. I am surprised that your client has not taken up this issue in a little bit more of a forceful way before now, because
Yeah.
I would not be a happy
Well,
camper.
that's a very good point. I think my client has had direct discussions with Minnesota Cemeteries over the last couple of years. There is a line of communication. That's why my client was very surprised to get the notice on the CUP application, because he kind of felt that this was maybe something that should have been discussed in person, just leading up to it, of, hey, we're thinking about an expansion, we understand that there's a drainage issue
Right.
here. How can we work together to get that done? And so it's somewhat of a, they much would have preferred to have dealt with it in that scenario and not had to come before the council or planning commission at all on it. But unfortunately, given the concern and some of what we've seen also with a couple of the recent rainstorms over the last week or two, where it's easy to forget a little bit when you've got a
Right.
dry summer and there aren't
Right.
any issues, and admittedly, when they're not getting calls from tenants as to issues with the parking lot. But it's obviously very topical at the moment, not only with the pending application, but with the fact that we've also been seeing a little bit more rain over there. One of the other things that's also been a very recent issue over there, when we reviewed the application, it looks like there was a wetland delineation done, and that they've determined that there's a delineated wetland in the corner. It also noted that there have been impacts within that delineated wetland, and being on site, it looks like there has been some excavation and dirt work there. And so, one concern my client has, I don't think any of us would have an answer to it tonight, is, you've got a delineated wetland, which you're not supposed to impact. It's now been impacted for better or worse. How does that issue get addressed?
Absolutely. And so do extend our thanks to your client for attempting to work this out person to person first. That, is absolutely great. My question to staff is, how soon can this go in front of planning again?
Well, according to our attorney, it has to move very fast to get onto the next
Right.
planning commission meeting. And
If I may ask, Joel, is this something that needs to be republished into the
No.
newspaper? No?
No.
Okay. There are a couple of dates that we can look at. I'll need to turn to our city planner, but the latest it could go is September 27th, and it could still make the October 5th city council meeting. And we would be able to meet that 120-day deadline. So to accommodate for staff preparation and some communication, I wouldn't want to rush it to the next
Yeah.
planning commission meeting, which is on Monday night.
Yeah.
But
Right.
to allow some staff time, accomplish hopefully some solution and bring it back to you in a timely matter, October 5th.
Okay.
Mayor, if I may ask one
Yeah.
last follow-up to staff. And you'll be proposing some solutions for how this could be mitigated, correct?
That would be part of the analysis. Hopefully, we can have opportunity to bring both parties, have some conversation together, and some mitigation strategies. I'm kind of looking over to our city planner and city engineer because they'll be involved directly with those conversations.
yeah,
Okay,
I'm gonna
appreciate
go-
that. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm going to go to our Public Works Director, Mr. Ryan Peterson.
Sure.
Mr. Peterson.
My comments would be is we typically don't do the design on something like this. We will very much take the comments we heard here tonight, which was, let's see if we can mitigate some of these drainage problems. So we can help provide some ideas, but we won't be the ones who are engineering the solution or anything like that, given it's to private property.
That's right. Yeah. Okay, so our staff will be doing all of that work and also working with the two businesses, the cemetery and Nicollet.
We'll indicate the problem
Yes.
that's that wants to be solved.
Yeah.
And if I may.
Councilmember Schultz.
Ryan, do you know offhand, do we allow French drains for these types of situations, French trenches?
There would be nothing prohibiting that.
Okay.
And whether that looks like a lot of water.
I know.
So I'm not sure that that's
Yeah.
going to be the solution
Yeah.
that ultimately would work out. And we're not on either side of the
Right.
story here, but I'll just indicate the lower properties are going to receive the water, and they are lower, so they may not be able to solve this and prevent all water from going onto the property. I don't think that's what they're saying, but how can we make it so it's reasonable?
Thank you. Appreciate it.
All right. Members of the council, what I need from you in this particular one is a motion to send this back to the Planning Commission and for staff to work with the two property owners and have Planning Commission reevaluate this.
So moved.
Councilmember Gustafson makes the motion, second by Councilmember Keeley. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, say nay. And the
you.
motion carries. Work with our staff.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, We now move on to the regular agenda, and the regular agenda is a public hearing. This is a resolution vacating drainage and utility easements at 13500 County Road 11 as dedicated on the plat of the Burnsville Land Addition, and 13600 County Road 11 as dedicated on the plat of James Plaza. And presenting this evening is our engineer. There she is, our city engineer, Ms. Desrude.
Good evening. So this is a site here on County Road 11. There's a vacant lot to the north, and then we're also vacating easements on the lot that has the shopping center. So there is a proposed daycare on that vacant lot, and in order to make the daycare work, their topography is requiring some retaining walls. The areas in red are proposed retaining walls, and the areas in green are where we're proposing to vacate easements. So along the shared lot line with the Public Works site, and then along the property line that's shared with the shopping center as those retaining walls cross, and then also along the frontage of County Road 11. So we worked with the applicant, and we see that those easements have nothing in them. There's no utilities in them. They're not being used for a drainage purpose. So staff is recommending approval with just a condition, just in case there is some utility that comes up. We have found none, but if there were to be any, that the utility relocations would be at the applicant's cost.
Members of the council, questions for Ms. Desrude? This is a public hearing. I will open the public hearing. Is there anyone who wishes to speak to this item? Anyone who wishes to speak to this item? Anyone in queue, Ms. Collins? Okay. I will now close the public hearing. Members of the council, your pleasure.
Move to approve.
Councilmember Workman makes the motion to approve the resolution.
Second.
Second by Councilmember Keeley. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, say nay, and the motion carries. Thank you so much. And we have another public hearing, and this is all housekeeping. And this is a resolution vacating drainage and utility easements at 13612 Sunset Hill Drive as dedicated on the plat of Sunset Hill Second. Ms. Desrude, our city engineer, is presenting. Ms. Desrude.
So another easement vacation, this is the property here. A new home was built there over the past year. The drainage and utility easements that are on the side, they were platted as 10-foot drainage and utility easements. The property, when they brought in their initial plan, did not show these retaining walls in the easements, but then they did build them in the easements. So this is an after the fact vacating the easements that are having the walls in them. So there's two sides, and we're just kind of carving out where the walls are and keeping the rest of the drainage and utility easement. Again, no utilities are in those easements. They were used for a drainage purpose. They did construct swales on either side, kind of around the walls, so they still will be functioning as drainage on the side lots. But again, if there were any utilities that we didn't find out about, we would have them want to be relocated at the applicant's cost.
Okay, good. Any questions for Ms. Desrude? You guys are so good in helping solve all of these problems, even though it's after the fact. So, thank you. Okay, this is a public hearing. Is there anyone who wishes to speak to this item? Anyone who wishes to speak to this item? Seeing no one, I will close the public hearing. Members of the council, your pleasure.
Move to approve.
Councilmember Gustafson makes the motion.
Second.
Second by Councilmember Workman. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, say nay, and the motion carries. I will now recess the Burnsville City Council meeting so the Economic Development Authority meeting can convene. President Gustafson.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I call the Economic Development Authority meeting to order. Please note that all commissioners are present. Item number one, are there any additions to the final agenda? Staff, council, or commissioners, I should say. Seeing none, I'll move on to the consent agenda. This is may I have a motion to adopt the consent agenda as the minutes of our last meeting?
Move to approve.
Commissioner Workman and Commissioner Keeley, first and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay, and it passes. We move on now to our regular agenda. It moves fast on EDA. It's a resolution approving the amended development contract between the Burnsville EDA and the Capstone Quadrangle And Regina Dean, our Assistant Community Development Director, is presenting. Oh, you're down.
I'll just be over here. I don't have a PowerPoint available for this, but just a minor change is requested. So Capstone Quadrangle, it's the two 116,000 square foot buildings that are proposed and hopefully will soon be under construction within the next coming weeks. They received approval for those land use changes. And back in April, the EDA approved a TIF contract for just over $1.7 million. Now, the city staff, we were so successful in obtaining multiple grants for the project, and we negotiated with the developer to bring down the TIF amount and supplement with the Environmental Legacy Fund money that we were granted from Dakota County, and we were able to bring down the TIF amount to $868,419. So we've done a great job, I think, of using grant funds and supplementing that. The reason why we're asking to lower the contract amount is because we don't want to go over business subsidy regulations. So the amended contract is before you. The developer is in support of the changes, and with that, I'll leave it to you with any questions.
I agree, you did do a nice job, and I was thrilled when I saw the TIF had gone pretty much in half on that. That was very good work on behalf of staff. Do any of the commissioners have any questions or comments? Commissioner Schultz, and then I think Commissioner Workman.
I just wanted to say I'm happy that we're using this ELF grant, and this is a wonderful project to be finally able to use this money on. And thank you to our staff for putting this together so cleanly.
Commissioner Schultz.
This is one of those rare times where I will vote for TIF because we have contaminated soils. We have an issue that the person buying the property is facing that is not of their own making. And it's over and above what a person would normally expect. And so this will be one of those rare times, I think the first time, that I will be voting for TIF. So
That would make
just
it
to let you
rare.
know.
Well, actually, you're voting for the whole project.
Yep.
TIF is only part of it. It's just,
Yep, and I'm fine
but
with
TIF
that,
part of
because
it.
Yeah.
I do understand it. Normally TIF would completely kick it out
Yeah.
for me, but
Yeah.
I'm on board.
Commissioner Thomas.
Yeah, President Gustafson and members of the commission, I just want to thank our staff and everybody who worked so hard on this particular project, and also for the amount of grant funds that staff has brought in for this. What people don't recognize and appreciate is the hard work that our staff do to help with businesses and the applicants who come before us. So I want to just thank that, and City Manager Lee, and your leadership and everything that goes on with our staff on all of these projects. I am just most deeply grateful for what we've done here, because yes, the TIF allocation has come down, but if you look at all of the grant that this project was able to bring together, and that is all the work of our staff, I thank you for that.
Thank you. Commissioner
And I'll
Keeley.
make a motion to,
Commissioner Keeley has got
Oh.
this. He pressed the button, but I couldn't see your screen.
yeah, I did, yeah,
Need to spin it this way.
yeah.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is one of those projects that meets the but-for test for TIF. I'm a little more apt to use TIF, especially in these circumstances, because if TIF wasn't available, if the ELF grant weren't available, this land would sit in the current condition for another 100 years, because it would be extraordinarily costly to build upon without other soil remediation solutions coming into play. So I think this is, it may not have been our first choice per se for the ELF grant funding, but we do have that little over $1 million to use, and the clock is ticking. In fact, we're just running out of time, and so this is a big project, and I think it ends up being a very good use of it, so I would support it.
And this project will bring jobs to Burnsville, which is
Yeah.
a very important
Yeah.
part of what we're doing here.
Yeah. So, Mr. President, I make the motion to adopt the resolution.
Motion by Commissioner Couts,
Second?
second by Commissioner Keeley. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Do-do-do-do.
Should have let you.
None. Okay, it passes. There's no other business, and so may I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Commissioner Keeley motions to adjourn.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Workman. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And we are now adjourned. Back to you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. I will now reconvene the Burnsville City Council meeting, and members of the council, there are no other items to come before the council this evening, and a motion to adjourn is in order.
Motion
But
to
let
adjourn.
everybody also know that we go right into special work session. So Councilmember Keely, you make the motion.
Second?
Yes.
Second by Councilmember Gustafson. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, say nay, and the motion carries. Does anyone want to take a 5-minute break before we move into?
She does.
Madam Mayor, if we
Yes.
could, so